Welcome to the Sounds Good podcast. I'm your host, Big Red of Big Red Records. I'm a music producer and multi-instrumentalist, and this show is built on a simple idea. If it sounds good, it sounds good. This is where I sit down with artists, producers, and people across the music world to talk about their process, their perspective, their lives, and what they think sounds good. Let's tune in.
Do you often flesh out kind of the arrangement before you go into record, or do you prefer to figure out stuff in the studio and just kind of...
Yeah, my process is I have a demo first, so the song exists in my head once I can play it start to finish on a guitar, and then I go into a studio, because I always kind of value my songs more for live than for studio when I first make them, because I can have a song done on guitar and the lyrics are done, and I can go play it at my next gig if I'm just workshopping it. And if I'm sitting down in a DAW to lay it out, I've probably played it out a couple times, probably not even mentioned that it's my own song, kind of thing. Just
right.
Yeah,
it's a good way to test out songs at the bar gigs or whatever. So let's talk about this trip, because you recently decided to go to Europe by yourself for 3 months this spring, which is, not a small decision.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for the dad lore,
For sure.
Yeah. So first of all, what made you think about doing that, and why did you originally want to go? And then what finally pushed you over the edge and be like, I'm doing this. I'm booking a flight. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of structure that I've had in my life since childhood, and very thankful for that structure and those guardrails and everything that kind of, kept me safe and protected growing up. That's always really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just the first time that those guardrails weren't there anymore, and I'm like, let's go push those boundaries. It's something that I saw a lot of people do in my life younger than me, just with things that were a little less extreme in a sense.
Right.
I stayed at home for school. Some people didn't even go to school, and they were out doing different things. A great example is, I'd say what I did going to school for music first is a safe option. And for example, you going to just start your career immediately out of high school, in hindsight, for me, I think that's the better option for musicians if they're trying to be in the industry, but it's also more risk. I found that what I was doing in my life up until the age of 22 was very safe and not a lot of risk. So this trip was kind of I just reached a milestone. I have my undergrad. Let's go see how I operate without structure and without things around me, being in different cities all the time and exploring. It was really eye-opening and helped me get a little bit closer with myself.
Yeah. So what did you notice about yourself after the trip or during the trip? How did you handle not having that daily structure, or you go, basically kindergarten to the end of university, and for the most part, your schedule's kind of planned out for you. You have some leeway, but for the most part, you're like, okay, well, I've got classes today. I've got classes tomorrow. I'm going to chill on the weekend, But now it's you can do essentially whatever you want every day for the rest of your life. And nobody really prepares you for that. I've thought about that quite a bit, actually, because like you said, I went right out of high school into kind of the workforce. And it's you don't realize how much is kind of just, I don't want to say given to you, but planned out for you. And you're like, okay, now I didn't realize figuring out stuff to do is something I have to learn how to do now. Nobody tells you about that. Or it's I have to figure out what I'm eating for dinner every day now.
Yeah, stuff like that.
It's just you didn't think about that before when you had everything just kind of planned out for you.
Yeah. I think I'll start by telling you some things I can't really speak to, because that whole sense of like having independence and um, looking after yourself is definitely there, but on a very, very easy level. Like, for example, if I'm in hostels, I was going out to eat at restaurants every night. There wasn't any like sense of, oh, how am I going to get groceries? I would do it occasionally, but all
Right.
that to say, I was still on vacation, I wasn't,
Right. Yeah.
figuring out life for myself. I was just going out to eat at great restaurants, meeting new people all the time, socializing. So there is something to say about the fact that everything I was doing was from a point of leisure. But in the same sense, it was still really eye-opening for me, going back to what I was saying, how I operate day to day, and especially how I operate when that structure and safety isn't there. Um, and safety, I don't mean like physical safety. I just mean like what you're doing is predetermined and there's not a lot of risk surrounding it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we were saying before, going to school, everything's planned out for you. And I think something that it kind of puts in your mind without you realizing it is that your day can be perfectly structured. You got one class from 9 to 10, and the next class starts at 10:05, right?
Yeah.
Something that you gain from giving up a little bit of agency and a little bit of independence is a very, very perfect and efficient schedule. Like, you're always doing something throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And what that did for me growing up, I think, I set an expectation with myself that a day has to be like filled with stuff top to bottom in order for it to feel successful. And when you step out into the real world, you try and schedule like more than two things in a day and the day just falls apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think a big part about being on this trip and going out and doing things for myself, especially because it was from a place of leisure and the stakes weren't as high, it allowed me to scale back those expectations with myself and become more comfortable with things that don't work out, things that I try that I can't get to work, because being having really high expectations for yourself just pushes you further and further backwards in the direction you want to be going. So
Mm-hmm.
if I have a train booked from one city to the next and I have a connecting stop between two train stations, and the first train I get on is super, super delayed, and it causes me to get to the next train station, and I miss
Right.
the train that I'm going on next, and I am just stuck in a new city for,
Right.
and I have to catch the next train that's like 12 hours later, and you're just stuck there hanging out,
Yeah.
and everything you planned in the new city is canceled for a day, and you lose all those things. That happened to me and a friend once, and I think a version of me 3 years ago would have been devastated by that. Just like those things, when they don't work out, even though you planned them in a way that you felt was best, would just really nag at me for a long time. And I found that because it was near the end of my trip and I'd had so many little things that wouldn't work out and couldn't fall into place, I was like, these things happen, and I could not have expected this situation to happen. The only thing I can do in the future is maybe put a little bit more time in between layovers with trains. Maybe an hour and a half isn't enough, even though I thought it was. But
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what you do in the future to amend that, it's more important to be comfortable when those things happen and not let your mindset on it snowball and make the things after it worse.
Yeah. Don't freak out about a missed train. There's always more trains. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's interesting how you're talking about the version of you 3 years ago um, is seemingly a lot more different than it is now. Do you think the version of you just before the trip is noticeably different?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Coming back from the trip and before leaving for the trip, I'd say a month before and a month after, I didn't have a lot of things planned. It's really hard to plan anything
Right.
before a massive trip because you can't do anything long term. You have a big block when you're not in the country. And after, I mean, took me a month to settle back in and get back into my routines and start applying for jobs and eventually find something. But I think that month before and a month after, when I was doing absolutely nothing, they were functionally the same, but my mindset on it was so different because I was just coming out of school before the trip, and I was like, okay, what do I do now? If I sit at home all day and all I do is work out, eat well, call some friends, is that a bad day? And in my
Right.
mind, I'm like, well, I need to be doing a little bit more. I need to be doing this. The month after I came back, people would tell me like, oh, what'd you do today? I'm like, I did nothing. And it was amazing. And I would never be able to say that before this trip. So
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah, just becoming more comfortable with my own downtime and with myself without the things that I attach to myself to give value.
Yeah. I've thought about that a little bit too, of just like, is being perfectly productive for a day actually a successful day or not? And what I've come to realize, I think, is that um, if you're just filling your day with random things just to say you've accomplished something with all of your time, you spent your time doing something productive, that's not necessarily the best use of your time. I would say it's not necessarily bad to be productive all day if you're doing something that you really love to do, or if you're working to some kind of greater goal, or like to your career. Someone that pops into my mind right now is Ryan Farley, who we had on the podcast, and he's always, he's working a lot of hours, but he's working towards building his grant writing business, and he's got some other services that he does for artists and musicians around the world. So he does work, 12, 14, 16 hours a day sometimes, but it's doing stuff he loves to do, and it's working towards what he wants for his life. So instead of just like, filling it with, fill in the blank, I think that's where I stand with that. But what do you think about that? Because sometimes a day of just doing nothing is actually quite a productive day.
Yeah. I think that is always something for anybody who works in the creative industries that we wrestle with back and forth, probably.
Yeah.
What I've seen in my very few years so far starting up into the creative industries, I think it's something I'm going to wrestle with for my whole career. You either are taking too many things on at the same time, or you're saying, I need like a couple weeks off, and then it kills some of your momentum and things. And I don't think there's necessarily a right answer. My commentary on that whole situation is when you are starting out in the music industry, you're told to just take any opportunity that comes your way. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. But at the same time, there has to be a little asterisk at the end that's like, if you can physically fit it into your schedule right now. Because I feel like the average musician's day is either, like you said, 12 hours doing like 3 different jobs, or you have one day where no one calls you for anything and you sit at home doing nothing, right? So as hard as it is to turn down that opportunity that comes on the same day you have 2 other things booked already, you have to really decide, is the stress I put myself under for that chaotic day going to be worth what I get out of this next call? Or is it going to make me tired and burnt out for the week after and make everything else worse?
Yeah. Yeah. I think also if you have a lot of time on your calendar, it kind of leaves you a lot of time to just like think about things. I found that sometimes in the wintertime when it's kind of a slower season, where I'll have, a couple days in a row where I don't really have anything scheduled. And you kind of end up floating into the world of just reflection and being, kind of looking at the big picture, but also like reflecting on what you've done in the past. And then sometimes you can start questioning, is this the direction I kind of want to go? And I remember you talking about that a little bit, probably last year and before the trip. You were thinking a lot about what direction you wanted to go into. And I'll let you speak on this, but I think it was partially you're kind of just burnt out a little bit from doing all the things needed to be done by an independent artist. And people were kind of telling you, well, you've got a great voice and you're really good at singing songs, so you should be an artist. And maybe you still want to be, which would be great. But you were also talking about maybe you want to do some production stuff, or maybe you just want to be a songwriter, or, maybe you want to do something completely different and just have music as like a side hustle kind of thing. But do you feel like you've got any more clarity after going on this trip, or just over the past few months, of which direction you want to go?
I have gotten clarity, but it was not around answering the question as much
Okay.
as it was around realizing that I was asking myself a question that maybe didn't need to be answered at this point in time. So what I mean by that is, I think where I've been brought up and kind of the family and social circles I live in, nobody I know is going into a creative industry or has worked in a creative industry. So what that means for me is, when I'm looking around, I have family that work in business or in law or in any facet that has structured career paths, and friends, like most of my friends I made in high school all went into engineering, and
Right.
most of my friends in university are nursing. So these are careers that the second you graduate, well, you have to have, like, I'm not saying it's handed to them. I would want to say that first, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
when you graduate from nursing, you become a nurse, right? It's just very labeled, and it's very structured. And something I've learned about myself is, in another life, I would absolutely love that peace of mind, no pun intended,
Nice.
of
Shout out to Peace of Mind.
I would absolutely love that, of just knowing that what I'm working towards has a more measured outcome than when you leave school with a music degree. You could be doing anything or nothing at all, and your music degree doesn't
Yeah.
actually lend you into any specific direction. So I think a lot of what I was struggling with before the trip, with a little extra layer of burnout sprinkled on top, was everybody I can see around me right now, if they were 22, is saying, like, what label are you going to put on your career? And then how are you going to go do that? Whereas for me, I know that I enjoy songwriting. I know that I enjoy being an independent artist, and I love being in the studio and helping other people with their productions. And I thought that I needed to just put this label and say, I need to pick one of them and just do that, because if you put all of your focus into one thing, it has the best outcome.
Right.
I think in my industry, it's not necessary for you to put that label on yourself at 22 years old. So coming back from my trip, I've just come to terms with the fact that I'm going to have a very nebulous, undecided part of my life in the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm just going to make sure that whatever I'm doing, it's always putting as much effort I can into the things that I love without too much expectation on what's going to come out of it. As long as it's in, like, not this direction, but in that direction, I'm happy, as long as I'm going in that direction.
Yeah, more of like a wide scope of just, I want to do something music, songwriting, production related, rather than I want to be an independent artist in the folk genre doing,
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Yeah, I've thought about that stuff a lot too, because it's like, it is ideal to pick one thing, and that's how you get the best outcome, is focus on one thing and you get really good at that one thing. But at the same time, how do you know what thing you really want to dedicate your life to unless you try a bunch of things? And now's the time to do that, And you can contrast that with, like, well, everybody says if you want to be an artist, it's like a young person's game. But I don't know. That might be the case for a lot of people, but there's also plenty of people who started their music career later in life. Like Adele was like 40 or something when she blew up. So I think there's no point in really thinking about what's the most optimal way to do things. I think as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, I
For
mean
sure.
that's a good way to spend your life, you know?
Yeah. I think when people say what's the most optimal way to do things, the way I always interpret that question is kind of in the scope of what everybody else is doing, and at this age, what is the average person doing? Where optimal
Right.
should be a word that you really reserve for how you currently are right now and what is the best for you. I
Yeah,
always have
true.
this idea in my head of what's right and not as much what's right for me. And I'm trying to cater what I make my decisions around, not based on what other people would see as the right choice, but more what people or what I think is the right choice for myself.
Hmm. So then, in the short term, what are the things you're currently working on, or what are the things you want to do kind of for the rest of this year going into next year?
Yeah,
Do you,
a big thing I'm working on right now is just a location change. Um, I'm trying to move downtown just to be a little bit closer to some of the people I met at York and some of the projects I've been working on. I dabbled a little bit into the film at York University, so
okay,
met some
cool.
people who are working on like student films and people who graduated and are now working on full productions. Um, I feel that where I live currently, all the opportunities I've found for some reason are either an hour north, up, Barrie, Elmville, where you are, or an hour south in Toronto. So
Yeah,
it's a really hard decision for me, but I kind of have to pick one or the other and just go for it, just so that I'm not always, um, you know, taking a 2 hour round trip to get to any music opportunity. So, yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm working on right now, not the like exciting headlines like go see this show or go stream that song. It's a very operational thing, just trying to make sure my environment is the best for me to be comfortable creatively. And, you know, I'm still writing songs, still working on my craft. It's just nothing really exciting to speak of as of now, other than that I'm trying to start a new chapter of my life and move into a new area.
yeah. So you chose South, right?
I think I'm gonna choose South. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that?
Um.
Are
I.
you a city person, or you
Oh yeah.
think
That's
there's
another thing.
obviously more people there,
Yeah.
you
Another
know?
thing from my trip is that I realize I do really enjoy being in a city. Um. I think being somewhere walkable is really important for me. So that's probably one of the main things between the two because, yeah, being up in Barrie or down in Toronto would actually be pretty similar for me in terms of the connections I've made and what opportunities and venues I might be able to start working with. But Barrie is a city where you still need a car to get around, right? So,
True. Yeah. It's not as densely, populated with, and it's not buried. There's not really any original venues there. There's like the ranch, and that's about it. There's not really any stepping stones in order to get there. So you
yeah,
do
that's
kind
true.
of have to go down to Toronto for like, the horseshoe or the supermarket or,
Yeah. And
all the things.
something that I really enjoy about if I were to move up to Barrie is there's so many because we talk about Barrie, but in reality, it's like we'll take Rogan for example. He lives in Barrie and he goes up to Quails to do a gig. Like that's not
Yeah.
Barrie, but in my mind, like I think of everything I've done. Like I've played with Rogan up at Quails. I've gone down or gone up to Collingwood a couple times to do some like um,
Yeah.
gigs at breweries and stuff. I really enjoy that whole idea of kind of visiting smaller communities because I just personally I have family out west in Sarnia and up in Orangeville, I think my heart kind of lies with those kind of more smaller fields and tighter communities a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's just if I were to move out, I would be paying rent and car payments at the same time. I think I just have
Yeah.
to kind of focus on having a place where I can be situated and be able to walk or take the subway to everywhere I need,
Yeah.
just at this stage in my life.
And it's not like you can't, take a train up to Barrie or something and
Yeah,
like catch a
that's it.
ride somewhere. If you find a gig that's like you really want to do up in Collingwood or whatever, I think that is the right move. I'm also looking to move probably into the GTA, if not a lot closer, because right now I'm about an hour and a half north with
Yeah.
good traffic. So if there's bad traffic, God knows. But yeah, I mean, I think it does make sense to go where there's more people, because the more I'm learning is that there's more. It really is a numbers game. Like there's more venues, there's more A&Rs, there's more label people, there's more, everything. So it's just easier to find opportunity, especially in an industry that's so populated and so under financed.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, you were thinking about the annex, I think you said.
Yeah, I just really like the annex a lot, the area. I I find that when I'm downtown, I just naturally gravitate towards places that are in that area if I'm the one making the plans.
Yeah.
So, I've applied for every music school I can find in that area, and yeah, I've actually
I'm just gonna look that up on a map because I don't exactly know where that is.
it's kind of if you're going down the one line, because you drive mostly into the city, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, so just kind of north of Bloor,
Yeah,
Spadina kind of thing.
yeah, that area.
Yeah.
And I think the annex goes super, super far up, like north, and to the point where you're kind of
According
getting
to
to
Google
North York.
Maps,
I'd
it
probably be
goes,
like in the south of the annex, maybe
yeah,
closer to
yeah.
Kensington.
Yeah, like Bloor Street area.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a good spot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on Bloor.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the location of the music schools I've been applying to too. So it's just a nice area.
Yeah. So you're looking to do some more teaching then as well. You keep that up.
Yeah,
It's a
I
good
love
gig,
teaching.
really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can teach a lot of everything too, like drums and guitar and bass and vocals and.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. I love bringing different perspectives to people.
Yeah.
So many times I'll be teaching like a guitar lesson, and there's something rhythmically that they might be struggling on. So I'll just take a basic drum exercise I might do with a drum student on day one and maybe repurpose it a little bit so it's more useful on the guitar.
Mm.
But I do think music is all about getting different perspectives from people, and I realized that what I have pursued in music for the purposes of just songwriting, I think I mentioned this before, maybe on the last podcast, but everything I did in music was for the purposes of being able to be more equipped to write better songs. So I never picked up a guitar and thought like I need to get to a level where I've absolutely mastered this instrument so that
Right.
I can, shred solos all day long on stage. It was like, now that I can make interesting parts for a song, I feel like I'm kind of plateauing. Let's see what I can do on a drum kit. Like maybe I'll just learn a basic beat to
Right.
make sure I know how to cater a drum part to help a song more that
Yeah.
I'm writing. So I ended up being in a place where I'm able to teach students really confidently on a wide range of instruments to a pretty like intermediate level, I'd say.
Do you find you learn much from your students too? Because I've done a few lessons. I haven't really taught music lessons per se, but I've done a few like production lessons, and I find when I'm teaching something, it almost like um, reminds myself of how to do the things I'm teaching, and it almost like solidifies what I already know by trying to explain it to someone else.
Yeah,
Do you find you
absolutely.
get that? Yeah.
I do think what teaching and even something like a podcast like this does the most is it just brings things back to the forefront of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think we understand a lot of things intuitively, but if you're not telling it to someone else or talking about it openly, you start to think about it less and less. I think what
Yeah.
teaching did for me is you're teaching a 6-year-old how to play drums. You're really just focusing on the most simple things, the most basic things. And what do people always tell you about writing a good song? It's to keep it simple, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
what I found a lot that happened is there's always a point when you're learning any instrument where you start being like, let's get experimental. Let's, try something really cool and out there that's exciting because I've done the basic rock groove for, um, you know, 4 years now and it's starting to get really boring. And I love like seeing that phase in my students, but as a songwriter, it's almost like that is the dark side. It's like if you wrote a song that is incredible lyrically and it has like this really cool guitar part and maybe there's one other element, like there's this really cool layered backup vocal harmony section, the drums probably should be a little simple. Just hold the groove down, because if everything is like operating at like this crazy level, you might get distracted from what the vocalist is saying. So for me, it's just really helps me to see the value in the simplicity of different instruments and making sure when I'm making a song, I pick my leaders. Sometimes I write a song where the drums are really interesting, and it's probably because the guitar part is simpler, or the bass is kind of just laying down on the quarter note. But it just helps me maintain that baseline of like, this is what you can do on an instrument where it's still interesting, but not super in your face and drawing attention from other instruments.
Yeah, that reminds me of two things I've learned. One is from Dawson, who was on the podcast a couple episodes ago, who's my mentor and friend, and he's also a producer. But he always says that you want to pick like 3 or 4 things in your song that you want to make sound like really good, and then everything else is just supporting those things. So I think you could almost tailor that to the actual notes you're playing or the actual things you're playing, and you could say pick 3 things that you want to be different and interesting, and then everything else keep it simple just to support those things that you've chosen to be the kind of spotlight elements of your song, and that'll make them shine out even more.
For sure.
Yeah, and there's another thing, it's escaping me now, that my mentor Doug used to tell me as well, about simplifying. Oh yeah, it's he'll often he does like really polished sounding like Nashville style kind of country and pop. You've met him, and so he often has a lot of layers of different things. Like he'll have multiple different keyboards and synths, and 8 or 10 tracks of vocals, and it's different kinds of drums, 2 different basses, like tons of layers of things. And what he told me that he recently learned, maybe not so recently now, a couple of years ago, that he's implementing now is he'll still fill out all of those things, and he'll still have all these layers to make things sound really full. But then once you've gotten to a spot where the mix is, pretty close, or like kind of half mixed, you can go in and you can start removing things and see if you miss them. So you can go in and you can take out the shaker and see if you're like, is it empty now, or is it just cluttering everything else up? So he's like, if you don't love it, you lose it, right? So that's another kind of rule, and I think you could do that with the simplicity thing too. Like if you try playing that without that fill there, is it better with just going straight through with the 4 on the floor beat, or do you really need that fill there in order to move into another section of the song? Do you have any thoughts on that?
For sure. I think it's really funny thinking about when I send you my stems from a song I'm working on for you to mix,
Yeah.
how many things I'll have like all these tracks in Logic, and there'll be this random part, and I'll be like, I'm just not gonna send that to him. And it's that whole process where it's
Really?
like,
Yeah.
how many stems do you receive, and how many tracks were in my project? And usually I have a lot more tracks just sitting in my project that never made it, and
Interesting.
that used to that used to stick with me a little more because I'd be like, well, I like this at some point. I thought this was really cool when I first put it in, so
I think
I gotta
that's
keep
important too, though. Like, if you, especially if you play something, like I think about this with songs I hear for the first time. I think I talked about this with you before, but you said that you can usually tell right off the bat if it's a good song, like after first listen. And for me, it takes a couple listens usually. But sometimes, either when I'm listening to a song that's already done, or if I'm coming up with a part for a song and I hear it for the first time and it really sticks out as like that fit perfectly, I want to remember that thing was really good off first listen, even if it kind of gets into my memory and kind of loses its sparkle after listening to it 100 times. But I want to remember that when I first heard that, that was really cool. So most of the time I'll try to savor those things because I know my listeners, when they listen to the song, they'll probably also think, oh, that's really cool right off the bat, and it'll stick in their ear and they'll listen again later.
right.
You know?
And I think there's so many ways to get to that solution because, for example, maybe for a part that I write, like a little, sometimes I like putting like a marimba or bells in the background
Yeah.
or things like that that just add a little bit of a high twinkle to an arrangement because I think my voice sets a little bit lower. It's really nice to have things that sparkle on the top of an arrangement. So sometimes something like that I'll put in and I'll listen to it. I'll be like, oh, this sounds so like dinky or like cheap. I'll just leave it out, even though I thought it sounded really cool at the beginning. I think another solution to the problem, other than just completely leaving it out, for example, if I sent that stem to you and you were mixing it, maybe you would keep the first little melody that I really got attached to, and you would look at the 30 seconds after that I kept playing things following the chord progression and be like, yeah, you don't need any of this. And you duck it down like 6 decibels or just remove it entirely. So a lot of times I think about, instead of being like super absolute with things, because that's always my position as someone who thinks of production more as like arranging instruments from a live perspective than mixing, where you can be like, well, you can have this part and just keep it really to the back of the mix.
Yeah.
I think.
But then at that point, is it doing anything? You know, if you bring it down to that level and you play it through and you can like barely hear it, what if you just cut it out and then you listen back? Is it really adding anything to the song? You know?
For sure. Yeah.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I think there's 2 directions you can go when you're trying to make something fit and you don't want to get rid of it completely. You can duck it, and that like y-axis is volume, but the x-axis is just like time. I think something you talked to me about that I thought was really cool is maybe this background instrument like is decently loud in the first couple of notes so that your listener's like, oh, there's a banjo in this song now, but then it ducks down into the mix.
Yeah.
Or the part just gets shortened where you think, oh, this verse could use this, but you played it for the rest of the song and it doesn't need to be there for the rest of the song.
Right, yeah.
I think something that happens to me a lot, especially when I was starting out, is like, how many instruments are going to be on this song? And once it's in, it's just playing to the end. It never comes out.
Yeah. That I stopped doing that from what Doug told me about, like, if it's not fitting the song, you take it out. Because often, like, you know, you feel like if I put it in the first verse, well, it has to be in the second verse. You know? Well, not necessarily. Sometimes it just, because the second verse is going to be different most of the time. You don't necessarily need that banjo in the first and the second one. Sometimes the second one is a little more rocky. Maybe there wasn't drums in the first one, but now there is in the second one, and now there's too many things to have a banjo in there as well.
Yeah, and that's what I have come to love so much about production of songs is it's all those little nuanced decisions that make or break a song.
Yeah.
And I think, actually, going back to what you were saying about, I do remember that conversation where we were saying, I personally feel like I can listen to a song once and be like, oh, this is good, or I don't like it. And for you, you like to take a couple more listens. I think it just speaks to like what we value most in songs and what we define as good. Because as soon as I hear the 3 or 4 lines that I know are going to stick with me for a couple days and like I have to sit on and think about for a while, I've gotten something really good from the song. And it doesn't take multiple listens to hear the lyrics again. If I heard the lyric and I really liked it, I'll just say it's a good song. Even if the guitar amp is buzzing in the entire recording. Like I've listened to songs where the buzz of the guitar amp not being grounded properly is kind of like what's setting the ambiance for the beginning of the song. So I'd say my standards for recording quality when I'm listening to music is, to be honest, really low. If you're getting like really good lyrics across, I love it. So I think that's
you're
why
listening more to the song rather than like the mix. And I think I'm the opposite.
Yeah, so that's why I think that it takes you a couple listens, because analyzing a mix is just, there's so much going on. You can't get it all in the first time.
Yeah. I think that's true. Also, for a few listens, like, they always say repetition is what gets things to stick in people's heads. Most of the time they're talking about, repeating a line right after each other in a verse or a chorus. But also, if you listen to the song multiple times, you get to know the melody and you get to expect what's going on. So I feel like for me, sometimes when I listen to a song for, say, the 3rd or 4th time, that's when I really actually enjoy it the most. So I know what's going on and I can sing along, or I can at least, tap my foot along and I know what's coming. So
I think when you're going to like a live concert, I always am thinking, do I want to be able to just sing along to every line of every song of the concert I go to? Or do I want to just not even listen to the new album so I hear it live for the first time? So like that first listen is really cool when you're listening to music if you've never heard it before. But there's also a lot of merit, like you're saying, when you start to get used to the path that the song goes in and you can anticipate what's coming next. And then when you know that big thing is coming and it hits, it's satisfying because you anticipated it before it happened.
Yeah, but it is also cool when it's a surprise too, especially if somebody's doing something really cool with their song and it's like not just verse chorus, bridge chorus, and they throw in something weird like a key change, or they've already done verse chorus, but now there's a different verse and a different chorus, and you're like, oh shit, it's like a whole new song now, but it's really cool. It's unexpected. So, but okay, so I'm starting a new thing here,
Cool,
a new segment, if you will, of the podcast. So you're the first one to test it out. We're going to see how it goes. All right. So I've asked a previous guest who we've mentioned before on this podcast to leave a question for you. And guess who that guest is? I bet you can guess who it is.
Ryan Farley?
No, it's Rogan.
Oh, it's
but
Rogan.
That would have been a good one as well.
Ryan Farley was on your podcast recently too, right?
He was, yeah. I think he was episode 4, if I remember correctly. Rogan, I think, was episode 2 or 3. But
that's really cool.
Nevertheless,
is Rogan leaving a question for me or just whoever the next person was in this?
He knows it's
segment?
For you. Oh, so yeah, I told him. I'll tell you exactly what I told him. I said, I want you to give me one question to ask Jacob on the podcast. Make it as juicy as you can. I'll tell it's from you before I ask.
Okay.
So this is his question. Are you ready? This is totally off the cuff. Jacob has never heard this question before. He's going to be winging it. Rogan says, you are annoyingly good at a lot of things musically. If someone told you that you could only become world class at one of them and everything else would stay exactly where it is now, what would you choose?
Oh, Jesus. He's like a shaman. Like, this is what we were talking about before, right?
I know, yeah, because you said you like to be kind of a master of all. So if you had to choose one and everything else had to stay exactly where it is now, what would you choose?
I think if I had to choose to be world class at something, so tough. My gut reaction is just to say like lyricism, because that's what my passion is before all the other instruments. And I just think there's so much room. Like, you could see the skill ceiling on every instrument, and the next time a insane guitarist like Tim Henson, for example, just the first example that pops in my head, every time a new guitarist comes along to raise that ceiling a little bit with something insane,
Yeah.
but you still see where it is, right?
Yeah.
I find for lyricism, like, I can't even imagine what being like world class at a world class lyricist would look like. But
so
it's just
subjective, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't. It's hard to quantify who is really the best.
I think just having that ability to look around at 8 billion people in a world and be like, I'm going to say 50 words in this song that resonate deeply with the most people. I think that being world class at that, I would choose that just to see what it looked like. It would be really
Right.
It's this thing that has the most mystery around it for me, which is why I think I pursue it the most.
Yeah. I think it almost has the most range too. Like you have the most possibilities with lyrics. You know,
For sure.
that's an interesting one to choose because I feel like some people might assume you'd say guitar or something. You know.
Yeah, but that's well, it's always funny for me. I every instrument I play, I almost want to keep my. It's weird. I should practice more on everything, but I think I've put myself in this position where, like, if I practice the optimal amount for every instrument a day, that's all I would do, because I would just
Yeah.
be going from instrument to instrument.
Yeah.
But I think there's this, like, comes from, I think I started writing songs at like 10, and when I only knew 4 chords, the 4-chord song I wrote was just straight to the point, and it got the job done really well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's almost this, like, I have this attachment to the fact that whatever my current level of playing is what I'm going to be able to put into a song. And if I chose from Rogan's question, like, world-class guitarist, I would be able to do all these things that are so insane. I don't know if I'd write a folk song again. I would just be like, I would just go on stage and
just go into
form a
jazz
band
or
like
something.
Polyphia and just start shredding, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's something that probably drew me away from an instrument when I felt that I had learned a lot about it into another one, because, like I said, I always see music as a vehicle to share lyrics. So for my purposes, if I had to pick one, I would obviously pick lyricism and let everything else just sit where it is, because I can put together a nice little 4/4 beat and groove on it all day, right?
Yeah.
That's all I really want to be able to do in music.
You know, that checks out pretty good, actually, because you are in the folk scene, and I would say lyrics are kind of the main driver of the folk genre.
Yeah.
You know, like if you think about other genres like rock, I would say it's probably the energy of the song over the lyrics or anything
For
else. Or like, I don't know, pop maybe would be the production of the song. Hip hop might be the rhythm of the song, you know?
For sure.
But I think folk, like, you can have, you know, just a 4-on-the-4 beat and just the bass player playing eighth notes and just the guitar player strumming open chords, and you have really amazing lyrics and a good melody, and that makes a really good folk song.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I actually had my brother and my friend Alex over last night, and we were in this room because I have my monitors, my studio monitors, because he wanted to show me these songs that he heard at Electric Island, and he was like, the production on these is insane. And I just, like, it's a really cool exercise, because I never listened to these songs or anything in this genre more than maybe 5 or 6 times in my life. So
Yeah.
just sitting there and being like, the lyrics are either non-existent or it's the same vocal sample over and over again, and the value here is all in the production of it. And it's cool to put on those mixing ears and think like, with my very limited mixing knowledge, what is the impressive part and what is the artistry of this song? Because the lyrics were probably done in 5 seconds, you know? Take a
Yeah.
vocal sample, chop it up, put it on loop, and then you spend maybe 50 hours on like some of the most nuanced things.
Yeah.
So it's cool that when you get into different genres, you get to put different things to the forefront.
Yeah. I've thought about, people always tell me I should, release my own songs and write some originals. And I've thought about it. And I always thought it would be cool to do an album where every song is just a different genre. Because it'd
I've
be a fun,
thought about
challenge to
that so
do,
much too. Yeah, because when I was in high school, I was in a rock band, so I wrote like harder rock music to play with my friends. And I just now like, oh yeah, like R&B was pretty big at York, so I started getting into stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've written like songs for genres sometimes where they're sitting in my catalog, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with this song?
Yeah.
So it'd be really cool to just put an album that's
Just
all
the
different
kitchen
genres.
sink.
And
Yeah.
I've thought
Yeah.
about that a couple times too.
I thought it'd be a cool way to like collab with a bunch of different people too, and like to see how different I could make it. Like I could make a freaking Travis Scott style song, you know, or you could make something that's like fucking Cher, and just
Yeah.
throw it right after the freaking Travis Scott song and see what happens. It'd be a cool challenge to do, but
Yeah, and I think that'd be really cool from your position, because for me, in terms of my scope of genres, my reach, once the real instruments don't exist anymore, I'm probably not going to be much of use, right? Like
yeah, fair
if you
enough.
sat me down as a producer in like a hyperpop, like for a hyperpop song, I'd be like,
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
does my acoustic guitar work here? Or
Yeah, I think about Dawson again too when you said that, because he was telling me the other day that sometimes he'll write a thing, like he does a lot of kind of in the box stuff, like he'll program drums sometimes, most of the time probably. Sometimes he'll program guitars, and sometimes he'll write a part via programming instead of on the guitar, and then he'll play it for someone who knows how to play the guitar, and they'll be like, that's actually technically impossible to play, but it sounds really cool,
yeah,
and he didn't know that, right? He just went off what sounds cool. So that's just a whole nother like kind of mindset, and that's the cool thing about music, is it's not necessarily better or worse, it's just different.
yeah. And people have been using studio recording or production techniques to push the barrier of real instrumentalists ever since recorded music became a thing, right?
Yeah.
I love hearing stories about drummers in bands who will see someone covering a song from like their studio album and be like, this was 3 drum tracks that we just like overlaid on top of each other. Like no one was ever supposed to play this at the same time. And then you
Yeah.
just have like some kid posting a cover of them like, oh, this is just how the drums are played in the song, and I wanted to play just like my favorite drummer, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn it. And they end up playing something that's never been played on the drums before, putting all these different overlaid parts together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. There's just so many different things you can do. But when here's another question for you. When did you realize that you were a good singer?
Uh, I have to realize that every time someone says, "Hey, that was sung well." Honestly, I because singing is a muscle and it's something you can have a good and bad day for. It's such a
Yeah.
confidence thing. It's like I I can wake up one day and sing something and be like, "Oh, that sounded like shit." And then
Yeah.
some days I'll sing something and someone says it sounds great. I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm a
Hmm.
pretty good singer." It's I really got to work on keeping that my confidence in my singing as a higher baseline,
Yeah.
because for me it's a roller coaster.
Do you think it actually sounds bad when you think it sounds bad, or it's just in your head?
Um, I think I think I sing in some ways that damage my voice and isn't sustainable. So I think that if I'm waking up and singing and forcing it, it probably actually does sound
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
I'm assuming.
yeah. Yeah, you could
Um,
be right. You could be right.
I feel like there's so much for me to learn about vocal health that I'm just learning every day. Some of the co-op, Megan, was helping me out a couple days ago and just said I probably have a lot of neck tension. And going back there and like doing the exercises she told me, and I could like feel the muscles in my neck. I'm like, I probably do have a lot of neck tension.
Yeah, yeah.
So just stuff like that is so important, and why it's so important to have a community around you with your music, because everybody brings a perspective
Yeah.
that could honestly just fundamentally change the way that you approach music every time you learn something new.
Yeah. It's so important just to meet new people and see new perspectives too. Like that's part of what I hope people get from this podcast, is that even if you listen to the whole thing, if you get one thing out of it that you're like, oh, I could do that, or you learn something that you can actually use, I would say that's worth the listen, or worth meeting that person. Um, but yeah, where do you find your inspiration for songwriting? Do you find do you get it from other songs? Do you get it from nature? Do you get it from things that have happened to you in your life? From your friends, family? All of the
Yeah,
above?
especially for anything I write for myself, which is usually in folk. It's all just storytelling.
Yeah.
So, um,
Do you find you uh, base it off of real things that have happened to you or other people, or do you make up stories, or a little bit of both?
um, mostly I'd say I write about things that are personal to me. Something I've been getting better at over the years is um, leaning into the fact that a song is a story. So I don't need to be like listing facts. A lot of times, if you're just listing the things that's happened to you in your life, it's not the most engaging story to tell.
Yeah.
It came a
Yeah.
lot from like, I would have, I have a friend who tells really, really good stories, but I started realizing over the years, because I would hang out with him so much, that if I saw the thing happen that he saw and then he went and told the story to someone else in front of me, I would always jump in and be like, dude, that didn't happen at all. Like, it was completely different. But, you know, if you're telling a story and you say, like, well, the guy jumped into the pool from like 40 feet up, and I'm like, no, it was like he climbed onto the roof of like a little bungalow and jumped from like 10 feet max. But like, who cares? You're telling a story. If the
Yeah.
person, you know, if you stretch that detail a little bit, it's essentially lying. But for me, I was always like, if you're telling someone a story, you got to put all the truth in it. You got to be just saying it exactly as it happened. And I learned over the years, and a lot of times from these situations, that when someone's listening to a story in any medium, they're expecting some aspect of fiction, right? And if you can convey something in a way that has more emotional impact because of some things that happened, and you change some of the details to make that story more powerful for whatever message you're trying to deliver, you should, you know, say the person jumped from 200 feet up, if that's what's going to have that most emotional impact on
Yeah.
somebody, right?
It's almost less like you don't want to literally say what you want the people to feel. You
Mhm.
want to say what will make the people feel the way you want them to feel.
Yeah. So
I
I
don't
think
know
to
if
tie that
makes
back
sense,
to your
but
question, I do write a lot about things that have happened in my life, but um, I'm getting better at just sometimes letting my imagination run free with different stories and trying to put a little bit of fiction into the stories I tell, if it, and try and say like, what could have the situation have been in a way that would have a more powerful message or deliver more emotional impact.
yeah, yeah, very interesting. I think about kind of the method my sister writes in too. Like her first EP we did was she called it seasons, and there was 4 different songs. They were, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and she created each of those seasons as a character, kind of all going after the same lover. And so they were kind of like fairy tale stories,
Yeah.
but from what I can tell, I think there's a lot of personal to that as well. So it's almost like the base is a made up story, but then there's still some reality to it. Whereas I feel like what you're saying could be kind of the opposite, where it's like a real story with some fiction built in.
Yeah. And I always loved that EP and the concept that was built around it. You don't see a lot of like concept albums and stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I always love when I do see it, but I think things like that with that EP is super important, because when you build structure around the story, you set some limitations too. Like,
yeah,
I think it was really cool that your sister based all the characters around the 4 seasons, and then when they figured out, or when they were writing about a character like Winter who was colder,
mm-hmm.
they might have been prompted to think about an interaction they had in their life with someone who was colder, and then they added on top instead of going the opposite way, which is, I guess, more what I do. You're taking things that happen into your life and trying to associate metaphors and meanings from other things into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes starting with the metaphor and adding in your details from your life when it fits is more powerful, because you get to that metaphor in a stronger way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the truth is there's just so many different possibilities, like we were saying. Like, there's so many different ways to approach it, But yeah. Well, thanks, Jacob. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything you want to shout out? I know you said there wasn't any huge highlights, but at least I'll put your socials and stuff in the bio. But
yeah, I actually am curious about this question that Rogan asked to me.
Okay.
Is this going to do you have anybody in mind that I know that I could ask a question to that you're going to bring on the podcast next?
I don't know. I only have a couple people booked so far, and I don't think you know either of them. So, but I will keep you in mind.
Yeah.
If someone makes sense, for sure. Because I think it's a fun idea. So.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to keep the chain going, even if it's someone I don't know.
Okay.
Like, if it's like, oh, this person's you give me like a short bio of them, like they're a producer for this genre and they play these instruments, like.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, good idea. I'll think about it. All right, Jacob Diamond, everybody. Check out the description for more info on Jacob and where to find him and where to follow him and all of his music and all the other great things he's working on.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
Jacob.
thank you so much for having me, Wes. Always a great conversation.
Of course.